Hey, what's up to anybody who's watching? This is another video of New York City DDR history, and this is probably going to be my most personal video because this is the video of the 2005 Jacob Javits DDR tournament, Digital Life. Excuse me. So, in a lot of my videos, I've been talking about 2004 and 2005, and I did, 3 or 4 videos on 2004 and like what the environment was, and I did a couple of videos on, like 1 or 2 videos on 2005 already. Some of my videos have been more general, some of them have been more of a personal take, some of them have been a bit of a rant, but like this video that I'm about to make is probably the most important video to me in terms of this whole series that I'm doing. I did a video on the DDR at NYC Jacob Javits, Digital Life 2004, and I went over the how freestyle played out, and I went over how the tech division played out, and I ultimately opted out of the second half of that tournament because I didn't feel like the rules really represented who was the best, and that was what I was really focused on. I was really focused on proving that I was the best. Like I wanted to prove, either I was gonna prove I was the best, or if somebody came to this tournament or a tournament and beat me, then they were better than me. And that's what really meant the most to me. I was very competitive. In New York City, we were very competitive, and that's just kind of how it was. And I think in 2005, at this time, I kind of got a feel that like maybe the other parts of the country or the world weren't as competitive. DDR, it was kind of like a competitive game, but it also wasn't. It was because there were 2 pads on the machine. So if you go into an arcade and you look at a DDR machine, there are two pads. There's a left player side and a right player side. And so it seemed like it kind of suggested that, but at the same time, DDR was not like a fighting game or anything like that. It wasn't a first-person shooter, so it wasn't directly competitive in that regard. And I think the people who got attracted to DDR may have been attracted to it because they didn't play other video games, and that's really something that I think is important to note, that I didn't have the foresight to see as a younger DDR player. That years later, I kind of realized like a lot of the people who play DDR weren't coming from the same place that me and other people from New York City were coming from. So, I don't remember exactly how I found out about Digital Life DDR at NYC 2005, but Sammy, the guy who ran the 2004 tournament, announced it. I don't think I mentioned Sammy's nickname, and I forgot it, but I have the flyer for the Digital Life DDR NYC 2005 tournament. There was like this, it was a little booklet. It was like a booklet that they put together, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But Sammy's nickname was SFE Taz. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway, like on DDR Freak. So Sammy is the guy who ran the Digital Life tournaments. He's the guy who ran the Sports World tournaments that I've spoken about in my previous videos, and he announced DDR NYC 2005. At this point, the guy who won 2004, at that time, he was a good friend of mine, Brendan. His nickname was Reflex. He kind of retired after he won that tournament. I don't really remember hearing or seeing too much of Brendan. Like he might have come to a couple of tournaments afterwards, but like he wasn't really in talks. I don't remember hearing much about him or his scores too much. I don't even really know that Reflex played in the groove or in the groove 2 that much. So I didn't really hear too much about Brendan. But he won the 2004 tournament, and at that time, that was probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, tournaments that had happened. So it was really from New York City. It was me, Fat Axel, Chris Fyre, Dino, and Big Matt, and then other people who were part of it, like AdamSTF, and a few other people who were really good, who were probably gearing up to be part of this tournament. The way that I remember it I don't know if the rules were ironed out yet, but in 2004, I mentioned the rules in 2004, and the more I think about it, I think that 2004 might have been 2 out of 3, and that might have been another reason why I opted out of it, because I didn't want to win or lose like that. And I did, if I remember correctly, I played Big Goblin in 2004 and going over and trying to remember everything. I might have beaten him, but I might have beaten him in 2 out of 3. So I don't know if I beat him in 2 out of 3, but I also had more perfects than him, or maybe I beat him in 2 songs, but he had more perfects than me. And I don't remember the specifics of that match, but I really wouldn't have felt good beating him like that, because he was one of the best players in the country back then. So if that was the case, then that's another one of the reasons why I would have dropped out of that tournament. So, I think what had happened was the tournament was announced and they were discussing rules on DDR Freak. And I remember going back and forth with people about how I didn't like 2 out of 3 and how I didn't think it was really fair. And what wound up happening was, I believe that I suggested a new scoring method. And what I suggested was, look, we have perfect attack, where the person who gets the most perfects wins. And there was like a version of perfect attack where perfects were worth 2 points and greats were worth 1 point. And I don't know if goods, boos, or misses took away from your points. They may have, but like some tournaments also used to use that as a version of perfect attack, which I think is kind of what DDR does now. Like Marvelous is a worth 2 point. They have like an EX score in the new DDR mixes. So I was like, look, we have perfect attack and we have 2 out of 3. And then in the older tournaments, they used to use the score on the bottom of the machine. And, whatever algorithm that was to produce a score, that's also something that some tournaments used to do, not so much around where we were, but like back in 5th mix, that was used more often than I remember that being used a little bit more. So I was like, look, let's combine all 3 methods, and whoever wins 2 out of those 3 methods wins the match. So at some point, Sammy, the guy who's running the tournament, and I'm not sure if Frequency had a say in this, but I believe they agreed to it. So we called this sketch scoring. And if you look in the pamphlet, you'll see that was the scoring method used for at least the expert division. I haven't read through the whole pamphlet in a while, so it might have been used for the other divisions, but at least for the expert perfect attack, the expert division, it was sketch scoring. So if you won the perfect attack and 2 out of 3 portion, but you lost on scoring for some reason, you won that match. And if you won 2 out of 3 in the scoring method, but you lost perfect attack for some reason, you would still win. Like it was 2 out of 3, 2 methods out of 3, and it was just like we can appease the 2 out of 3 people, we can appease perfect attack, which to me really was the defining factor in who should actually win a match. But at least we had the 2 out of 3 method, and then we had the scoring method, like the DDR score. So that was the method that they used for expert. The first prize for this tournament was $2,000, that was a lot of money. That was like back then for a DDR tournament, that was a lot of money. And that was one of the driving factors. The other driving factor for me was Ironman, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but really it was just everybody really cared about expert. Who was going to win expert this year? Who was going to win the $2,000? I don't remember, unfortunately, who set this up, but at some point either Sammy or Don wound up connecting with MTV, and MTV wanted part in this, like, to document this tournament and to document who was going to enter and potentially win. And they directed MTV toward me, because I had been very vocal about, like, all right, if this is going to happen and this is how it's going to be, then I'm going to participate in this tournament. So MTV reached out to me. They also at this time were doing something I don't know if this was the first year they did it, but around this time they were doing Gamer Week. So MTV started getting really involved in video games, and they would do something every year on MTV, the channel called Gamer Week, where they would invite a bunch of video game players up to their headquarters. They would interview people playing video games. So they also used to do that around that time. And me and Fat Axel and I think Devil in Black and a few other DDR players have been to the MTV. I don't know if it's Viacom or if it's just the MTV Building in Times Square. I've been there like 3 or 4 times. Whether it was like to interview, well, all of it was for DDR, but it was for different times, like for different times and different like periods of time where we would go up there and either display DDR, talk about DDR, and so on and so forth. There was a freestyle division, and the first prize for freestyle, I believe, was $1,000. I could check the pamphlet, but I don't want to flip through it too much. But I'll put it up, like if I find it. It was either $500 or $1,000. I believe it was $1,000 for freestyle though. So there was that, and that was also exciting for a lot of people because that was a lot of money, even for freestyle back then. That was a good amount of money. Me and Fat Axel teamed up for this 2005 tournament to do a freestyle routine. And we decided to do a routine to the song 20th of November. We came up with the routine throughout the course of the summer leading up to the tournament, and that routine was also very good. I'll talk a little bit more about freestyle as this video goes along. This video is probably going to be well over an hour. I don't know how much longer over an hour, maybe 2 hours, but like this is going to be a long video. And then there was an Ironman division, which the first prize was $500. And the thing about Ironman was like, I don't know if they do these anymore, but to me, Ironman was one of the funnest things about DDR tournaments. And around this time, see, like when I was younger, I was diagnosed with asthma. And then my asthma kind of went away when I was in middle school. Around this time in 2005, like my asthma was pretty much non-existent. I had like, after I had gotten over different things and different types of play styles for me, like my stamina was just, it felt like my stamina was unlimited. I never got tired on the pad. Like I don't ever remember quitting, especially in 2005. It was just like unlimited stamina. I never got tired. So for me, Ironman was really fun because it was the one time, depending on how they did it, it was the one time where you didn't really have to worry about perfects, and it was just about Ironman. Like they took the bars off of the DDR machine and made you play DDR without the bars. It was more of a stamina draining thing. So to me, I was just like, I really want to win this expert division, but I want to go for Ironman too. The Ironman was a PlayStation 2 that Sammy hooked up to a DDR machine, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And the PlayStation 2 was a home version DDR Extreme. I think I'm pretty sure maybe it was the American version, or I can't remember if it was the American or the Japanese version. But it was a home version DDR Extreme. This tournament was posted all over the internet. It was on DDR Freak, it was on Aaron in Japan, but even now, if you Google anything about this tournament, it'll come up on like random websites, like gamer websites, like from forums from like back then, like in 2005. So, this was a big deal when it came out. That's the thing, the rules about the expert division, like I mentioned, it was options tournament too. So not only was the scoring not going to be 2 out of 3, but this was like an options tournament. The options had to be matched if it was shuffled. I don't really remember the qualifier. The qualifier was an edit, but I don't remember what it was. But the options had to be matched. So this is where like a lot of the stuff that people played, this is kind of how like, I'm not saying that people stealth stuff, but like me, even as a DDR player, like even when I played regular stuff, if I was playing with somebody else, so I was trying to like refine how good I was at DDR before I started playing shuffle and options. you didn't memorize stuff, but your body, like it was kind of muscle memory. Like if you play Max 300 enough, you know which way your body's gonna turn. You know when it's gonna be a bit of a scramble of a run, or it's gonna be two of the same arrows. You may not remember exactly which two, but you know, when you play songs enough, your body kind of sets into like how the song goes. But when you put it on shuffle, it mixes everything up. So that was one of the reasons why I always advocated for that, because it was more of a pure and raw skill as opposed to like the same steps. And this tournament was options matched. If I picked the song and I put it on hidden shuffle flat, you had to play the song on hidden shuffle flat. If you picked the song and you put it on 6 option, I had to put it on 6 option. So this was like no frills. It was just like, this is what it is, you know, like this is the skill level. Stealthing is not going to help you. And I used to stealth a lot of stuff too, but stealthing is not going to help you. Playing grinding a song out to AAA, that may not help you if you're going against somebody like me who plays a lot of options. So yeah, like I focused on this, and the reason why this video is personal but also part of DDR history is because this was like my era. This was my time. And this, so even though this is going to be part of the series, this is also like a personal, very personal video. And a lot of the last few videos have been personal, but like, that's because this was my era. And like, you know, I just feel like I have to talk about it. So all summer I trained for this tournament, and I went into like a dark place. Like I was amping myself up and motivating myself to like, I was gonna win this tournament. I didn't care who was coming to this tournament, and I didn't care how good somebody was. In my head, I was gonna win this tournament. It meant the world to me. It meant so much to me to try to win this tournament. There was no guarantee that I was gonna win. But I didn't care who could do what. I was gonna push myself as hard as I could to win this tournament. And I went into like a dark place, and what I mean by that is like, I had like a nice playlist of like really motivating songs, and a lot of them were 2DX songs, like Traces, Quasar. The song Brightness, Darkness used to like amp me up. I'd listen to that, and I would picture myself winning this tournament. I'd picture myself like in the finals with whoever it was, picking what I was gonna pick on them, and like I played it out in my head, and to like live what I played out in my head what I wanted to live. And a lot of the 2DX music really amped me up. I was going to Staten Island playing DDR, visiting my girlfriend at the time, and I'd walk home from her house to the train station, and I'd be like walking really fast, listening to like Brightness, Darkness, amping myself up, thinking about like how I'm gonna learn or, you know, get better at like shuffle patterns. And then my friends would help too. I would get Fat Axel, or I had a friend named Jose who played with DDR with us at the time, and I would play songs on S4R or shuffle or 6 option, and I would have them like push me while I was on the pad or scream at me while I was on the pad. Like I'd be playing PSMO on S4R, and I would have Jose like scream in my ear like, you suck, you're not gonna be able to do this, you can't double A this, or like I would be playing S4R, and I would tell them like push me off the pad or like shove me while I'm playing. Like it was very militant for me. Like I was grinding out. It wasn't just that I was playing these songs, I was playing them, and like I was trying to like Navy SEAL the songs. Like I think I'd have Jose throw stuff at me while I was playing, walk across the screen, like put his hand in front of the screen, put his hand in front of my face. Like I had people try to mess me up on purpose while I was training. So it was a grind, man. It was really a grind. Before the tournament, I linked up with MTV. Again, this might have been for Gamers Week. I linked up with MTV. And in one of my previous videos, I was talking about Triforce, and I was talking about Empire. And this is another instance of like how the DDR community, or me, crossed paths with Empire. So it was, I don't know if this is true, but I want to say that me and Triforce were the first 2 people that MTV interviewed for this show. I think the show was called The G-Hole, which is actually a pretty bad name for a video game show. I don't know if it was like a play on words, but like that was what the name of this show was. That they put it on TV, and then they also put it on their website. But I want to say me and Triforce were the first two people that they followed around for this show. And we as in like me and Triforce were supposed to meet with the guys who were going to interview us at Laser Park Arcade. I think MTV had worked something out with Laser Park because the building was like really close to Laser Park. So we were supposed to meet them at Laser Park, I think before Laser Park opened, and they were going to do my interview and Triforce's interview. They were following Triforce because he was gonna break some world record on some retro video game. I don't remember what it was. I feel like it was one of those like Graduates or like shooting video games, but it could have been like Donkey Kong or something. I don't know. It was just like a retro video game. And if anybody who doesn't know or who didn't watch any of my previous videos, Triforce was like the leader of like this video game group in New York City called Empire. They primarily focused on fighting games. A lot of the people in Empire went on to do a lot of cool things and a lot of great things. If you ever watch fighting games and you come across IFC Yipes or Sanford Kelly, they used to be in Empire. But the guy who ran it, Triforce, he kind of had just like his energy. The best way I could describe it, his energy was really weird. And he wasn't, and a lot of people from Empire didn't consider DDR a video game. And they didn't like DDR, and they didn't necessarily like DDR players from what I understand. Not all of them, but this is what I was told from people who associated with them and like somebody who was actually in Empire. So anyway, me and Triforce meets up. Me and Triforce met up with the MTV people, and I can't remember the guy's name who was like he's like the Ryan Seacrest of this show where he was interviewing all the players. So they follow him around, but like they didn't really want to interview him. I think the guy was telling me, he was just like I don't think anybody's gonna really care about this retro video game. I think everybody wants to see you play DDR. This is really what we're trying to do. So I think they were supposed to go to his house or something. Like I think Empire had an apartment. They used to call it the Ark. But I think they something happened where like they ditched him to come to my house to film me at my house playing more DDR. But I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a minute. So, you know, I get there, I get to Laser Park, and they're filming him, but then they start filming me, and they had me play DDR backwards while they were interviewing me on the DDR pad. This is the first time I had ever done this. So they were like, "You think you could do that?" And I was like, I've never done it before, but we could try. So a lot of my friends used to think it was funny. They thought it was like cheesy that I was doing that. That wasn't like, it wasn't my idea, but I think I stealthed so deep while they interviewed me. I stealthed max 300 while they interviewed me. Maybe one of the easier songs that I used to be able to stealth, like Holic. But I didn't know that I could do that. If you would have asked me, I don't know if I could have guessed that, but I passed all the songs, like got whatever. I don't know what the scores were, but like I was able to pass them while answering questions. It was really weird what we could do when we're young, you know. Fat Axel was there. He was in the background. I tried to get him into the mix, but they really just wanted to interview me. But there's a couple of clips of him playing at Laser Park with me. The one thing that I think this point meant a lot more to me back when I played DDR in 2005, but I did go on like a 5 or 10 minute talking point on like the structure of the DDR community at that time, because even though I felt like, you know, a lot of the stuff that I talked about with the friction and my disagreements with how people played, I wanted to give people their credit. And I don't think DDR had ever really had any TV time the way it was supposedly gonna get with this interview and this little mini documentary that they were setting up for me. So I gave them the whole rundown of like all the people who were considered like the best players at the time, and I shouted all of them out, and I told them who was good at the time, and I went down the whole list of people who were good, and I told them the regions of players that were also really good. And And I tried to really emphasize that. They didn't put any of that in the video because I don't think they cared. They didn't care about the intricacies of a video game community. This was really just for like a casual person or a person who, you know, who just wants to see like somebody playing a video game and winning a tournament for 10 minutes. So they didn't put any of that in there. But I did shout out a lot of people. I gave a lot of people credit. I tried to explain to this guy like who was AAA and what, and the history, like the 5-minute breakdown Japan and all that. They didn't put any of that in there. So they, like I said, they followed me home. I remember AdamSTF being there and coming with me because if you look at this MTV DDR interview, you see him and my mom in the background, and so he was, AdamSTF was there. I think Fat Axel was too. I think. So. I think at the time I may have had a Red Octane pad at home, so they had me playing on the Red Octane pad. I had shuffle patterns that I had printed out, all that. So that was the part where they followed me home. So leading up to this tournament, the thing was like personal reasons for why people couldn't go is one thing. Some DDR players were young. Maybe people weren't in a financial position to go. But from a fairness perspective, there was really no reason that anybody shouldn't have shown up for this tournament. For $2,000, if you really thought you were the best player in the world or in the country at that time, especially if you were only a few hours away from New York City, there was no reason why you shouldn't have come to this tournament if you thought that you could place. I went back and forth with a few people about this, and the argument was so silly that they would say, "Oh, this tournament was created for New York players. It's not fair because it's an options tournament." It used to really blow my mind when people said that, because, and I think I said this in another one of my videos, the options menu was available on every single DDR Extreme machine in the country. Everybody had access to the options menu. Just because New York played options more did not mean that this tournament was unfair. That would be like saying, like, you know, I don't know, California players play 10-footers more than anybody in the country, and then there's a tournament, 10-footers only, and you're like, that's not fair because it caters to California players. Everybody has access to 10-footers. Everybody has access to options. Everybody has access to every song in the game. So I think a lot of people, you could really deduce what people were really trying to say by saying like this tournament catered to New York players, but it didn't. It didn't, and we weren't the only people who played options either. Like, you would see people put option scores up on Iron in Japan. So look, I don't know what the reasoning was for people to not come to this tournament, but if you had the means to and you thought you were good enough at DDR, then you should have been there, because the first prize was $2,000. The second prize might have been $1,000 or $500. So if you thought you could win and you thought you were the best player in the country or the best player in the world, especially if you lived in the United States, you would get your return on your investment by coming to this tournament and winning. There was really no reason for people to not come to this tournament. You know, like, I really want to emphasize that, like, I don't want to hear that like, if you couldn't come because you were too young or you didn't have enough money or so on and so forth, then that's one thing. But like, if you didn't want to come because you weren't good at options, you thought you were going to get washed, just be real about that and say it. Like, be real about it and say that you weren't good enough to compete. That's it. Like, and the tournament didn't force options. It didn't force options. You didn't have to play everything on shuffle. It was just that if somebody picked something and it was options, you had to match it. So I'll talk more about that as I talk about the tournament. I remember arguing with one of the prominent Iron in Japan players. And I think this it clicked for me where people were compared to where I was, because in my head, I didn't know where everybody else really was in terms of skill level. I was just assuming, because JSB had spoken so much about options and what he was and wasn't able to do, I was just assuming that people may have been like close to me. Like, this might have been like a close where like if I could do something, maybe the person who was considered the best DDR player in the country at the time, maybe they could almost do something. I had no idea. But I was arguing with somebody on not Iron in Japan, on DDR Freak. And this person wasn't the best player in the country, but they were pretty good. And I remember going back and forth with them about the ruling and everything and trying to explain to them options. And I said something to the effect of like something, I said something, I typed something. Like what if like I'm practicing PSMO on 1.5 S4R? And I remember their response was like, why would anybody even want to play PSMO on 1.5 S4R? And that told me a lot. By that response, it told me a lot. Because what it told me, and this person used to play with a lot of the other best players in the country, or like used to share scores with them and stuff. And I think they would have tournaments and in the group 2 tournaments, and they would like, they would hang out for the weekend or whatever. Like for that person to say that, what it told me is like, they think that if he thought that was crazy, and to me, I was like mad at myself that I couldn't consistently pass that. I hadn't passed PSMO on 1.5 S4. I never got there, but like that's, in my head, I was like, I gotta learn how to pass this because that's where I should be. But for that response told me a lot. I was like, oh, like I'm just on some next shit. I'm on some next stuff. And like for this person to think that was crazy, kind of told me what I needed to know. So all summer I was training. MTV linked up with me. I had my friends helping me out to train. This was going to be a huge tournament. The week of the tournament comes up. I was working at Starbucks at the time. I put in my time off, like from Thursday to like Sunday. Like I cleared out, like the day before I cleared out. Like I was just like, I don't want any roadblocks or anything. The venue was the same venue as 2004. The DDR section was in a different place. It was kind of more off to the corner, but it was a bigger area. I believe that there were like 3 or 4 DDR machines. I think all of them were DDR Extreme, but they were all like 2 or 3 of them were lined up on one wall, and then there was like 1 or 2 of them off to the other wall. And I think those were like casual DDR machines, so like people could play, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. And then the 2 or 3 of them that were like the main stage, they were like on a platform. Those were like where like the main tournaments used to were happening, like freestyle and like expert division and that. Everybody that was good from NYC was there. Chris Fyre was there. I believe Dino was there. Fat Axel was there, but I don't think he entered tech, or I don't remember if he entered tech. AdamSTF was there. Gilbert was there. Big Matt was there. I was there. I feel like, if I remember correctly, Technic came down for this tournament. I think he stayed with me that weekend. So Technic was there. And at this time, Nick had AAA, so many things. Nick was really good. He was a really good player. Really, really good DDR player. I don't know. I would like to interview Nick. I would like to get him to come through and have a in-person interview with him. I think he AAA DDR Extreme, but I could be wrong about that. But at this time, he had a lot of AAAs. And at this time, like, he didn't have any more regular weaknesses for like regular songs. Nick was good at everything. It was just a matter of whether or not he grinded out of AAA. So Technic was there. Reflex was there, but it was like, I didn't know what to expect from him because Brendan was really good at DDR, but he had kind of fallen back. So I wasn't really sure. Like, I was like, is this going to be a problem for me? But Reflex was there. Big Goblin was there. He was from the DMV area, and he was also very good. Also, at this time, if I remember correctly, he had a lot of AAAs. I don't know. I feel like he AAA'd Extreme too, but he may not have. But I think he almost did. I remember, like, real quick, like going back a little bit, there was like, this is before my time, like around the time that 123 Kid was like the best. But the rumor was that like he was really good at PSMO. Like, back when really good meant you could AA it. And then he played PSMO, and like he at the end runs he like twisted his ankle and broke his ankle and had to stop playing DDR for a while. I don't even know how that rumor got back up to us in New York. This is before like social media and everything, but like that was the rumor where like, oh, you know, Big Goblin, like he was, besides Stefan, him and another guy from Maryland, his name was Ben and his nickname was White Silence. This really tall guy, and both of them were good at PSMO. Like aside from Stefan, they were two people who were actually really good at PSMO for their time. But that was the rumor, that Big Goblin played PSMO so much, and he twisted his ankle and broke his ankle, and he couldn't play for a while. But he was at this tournament. There was an Italian player there. I think he was like one of the better players in Italy, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Quererno or Quererno. That's what we used to say, but he was there. He was pretty good. Pickles was there again, so that was cool. I thought it was really cool that Mike used to come down from Canada, and I had only met him twice, because I met him in 2004 and 2005 Digital Life. So he was there, and then Florida was there again. Now, I don't know. So Tiger was there, and he was also like a pretty decent Florida player. There was a guy from Florida. I don't know how to pronounce his nickname, but I think it was either Kaza or Kaze or something like that. And he was really good, and he was there. And it's annoying that I can't remember why I remember this guy's name, other than that he was good. I feel like I played with him or whatever, but like he was a really good DDR player. I don't really remember the specifics of why I know that, but he was at this tournament. And then JBoy was there, and he was from North Carolina, and JBoy was also a very good DDR player. Tall guy. At the time, he had long hair. I'm pretty sure he was from North Carolina, maybe South Carolina, but I think it was North Carolina. He was there. JBoy was a good DDR player. I think he was and is kind of known for being a really good pump it up player too. So the tournament for freestyle, the way that freestyle wound up happening was, well, let me talk about the venue a little bit more. It was really big. I think that this was the year, I don't think it was 2004, and I mentioned this in my 2004 video, but I'll mention it again. I think it was 2005 where I think on Saturday there was like a big event behind the DDR event, and like I didn't know what event it was, and I asked one of the people online, because it was just a bunch of computers and monitors, and I was like, what is this for? And they either said Halo or Counter-Strike, and first prize was 5 figures. It was like $30,000 or $50,000 or something like that. And that was one of the times where I was like, wow, I thought DDR was really going somewhere with this $2,000 first prize, which was still really good. But like I didn't know that video games had tournaments that big. I didn't really know anything about Counter-Strike back then. So I knew about Halo. I don't remember if it was Halo. It was a first-person shooter tournament though, and the first prize was a lot of money. And I think it was 2005. I don't think it was 2004. I remember Cameron, the rapper, was at this 2005 Digital Life. I think that there was like a demo for Guitar Hero at this tournament, or I remember Guitar Hero being like right next to the DDR venue. And I wasn't really interested in playing Guitar Hero. I really liked Amplitude when it came out. Amplitude is like it was like the predecessor to Guitar Hero. It was like, it looked very similar, but you played Amplitude. It was like playing Guitar Hero, but on a PS2 controller. And then the Amplitude had a game before it called Frequency. That was a PS1 game, and it was just like playing a rhythm game where you have to line up these little buttons with these little stationary buttons on your controller, like a PS1 or PS2 controller. And then they kind of took that idea and they moved on to like Guitar Hero, and then they made a game called DJ Hero later on. I used to love playing DJ Hero. They had one called Rock Band, but I think there was a Guitar Hero demo at Digital Life 2005. And there was just so many things there, like just a lot of tech related things, free swag. At this tournament, I believe it was this tournament, I think that this is when the newest Dead or Alive was coming out. I believe it was this. It could have been 2004, but I think it was 2005. Whatever the newest Dead or Alive that was out at that time, I think they were demoing it at this Digital Life. So if I'm wrong about 2005, then this happened in 2004, but I think it was 2005. And it was funny because I wouldn't have considered myself like a hardcore fighting game player in 2005, but I had been playing Tekken since Tekken 1. Tekken is a fighting game for anybody who doesn't know. It's like a 3D fighting game. And so I had been really into Tekken. Had always really been into Tekken. Dead or Alive, I didn't really play like that because Dead or Alive always felt very clumsy compared to Tekken. It was, to me, Dead or Alive felt very button masher friendly. So I remember this Dead or Alive, like the new one had just come out, and I believe it was for Xbox, like the first Xbox, I think this is how it was. I'll look it up after this video, but I think this is how it played out. So to kill time in between matches, I went over to play Dead or Alive to try it out because it was like a new 3D fighting game. It was like not the first one, but whatever, the second or the third one at that time, the newest one. And I sat down and I was gonna play, and there was a guy playing. There was like this guy around my age, like late teens, early 20s playing. And he was a little cocky. I remember him being like a little cocky, and I was just there to have a good time. I had no experience in Dead or Alive ever at all. And I remember him he was like saying that he was one of the best DOA players in the country. And I was like, okay. Like, so when he told me that, I expected to get washed. I expected to lose. So we started playing, and by button mashing him, I beat him. And that wasn't because I was good at Dead or Alive or I was like intuitively good at fighting games. It's just that's kind of how Dead or Alive is. So either, I got really lucky. He was really mad that I beat him. I remember him being really salty and like throwing his controller down, getting up and walking away. But I took note of that in the sense that I was just like, that's kind of why I never really got into Dead or Alive, because it was to me, it felt very button masher friendly at like a low level. I'm pretty sure like you can't beat expert DOA players by button mashing, but a lot of the game is like, you can't do that in Tekken. Like, you can't button mash in Tekken and beat somebody who knows enough about Tekken. So maybe over time they cleaned up DOA, but I just thought that was just very memorable. He was really mad that I beat him. I had no idea what I was doing. So yeah, the venue was really big. It was like the bathroom was so far away from the DDR portion of that venue that it took like 2 or 3 minutes to get to the bathroom walking. Like you had to walk like 2 or 3 minutes just to get to the bathroom. The freestyle portion of this tournament, I don't remember a lot of it at this point, but I think I have some videos. I think Tiger entered, the Florida DDR player. I believe that Jing may have entered, and he may have won, but I don't know. So I'm gonna overlay a lot of this with the videos that I have, that I could find out like who actually won. Me and Fat Axel entered. Devil in Black and Chris Beast entered together as a team. I want to say that Vyzor entered. I believe Julio entered. And at one point, Julio changed his nickname to 12. But, Vyzor 12, I think he entered this tournament. I believe so. The problem with the freestyle division of this tournament was that the volume was insanely low. Like, it was low enough that the audience couldn't hear the music when people were performing their freestyles. So that in and of itself was a problem, because the judges, the audience, people watching couldn't hear it, but even the DDR players couldn't even hear their song when they were freestyling. What wound up happening is a lot of us, including me and Fat Axel, failed our songs because the volume was so low. And I don't really know what happened. I don't know, like maybe I'll ask Sammy about it, but like I remember being really disappointed because me and Angel put a lot of time into practicing for this tournament, but after a while, I remember not feeling bad because a lot of people wound up failing. Like everybody that went up failed because they just couldn't hear the music. They were right next to the pad and they couldn't hear the music. So that was unfortunate. They did like a second round of freestylers where like you picked out a random song and you had to improv it. So me and Fat Axel did Sana, and that was our improv song. And I have the video for that. It was funny. We tried our best kind of. I feel like we may have gotten second place in that tournament, but I don't remember 100%. We won something. I think that year we won the Poppin' Music controller. Like one of the affiliates with that tournament made like 2DX and Poppin' Music controllers, so we won it. But it took us about a year to get that controller. Like it took a ridiculously long time to get that controller. I almost thought we weren't gonna get it. Like I got it in like 2006, like a year later or something like that. It was crazy. So that's how the freestyle division played out. I think if I had to pick one, I didn't really stick around for the regular division of that tournament. I wasn't interested in seeing people play stuff on standard and stuff like that. But if I had to pick one thing about that tournament that Sammy dropped the ball on, it would have been the freestyle portion, because the volume issue really messed up a lot of people. For the Ironman division, my memory is a little hazy on this too, but the thing that I remember about Ironman was like, in my head, I was like, nobody's gonna outplay me. Like, I'm not gonna get tired. I'm just gonna keep playing until somebody quits. The thing about Ironman was that it was a PlayStation 2 that Sammy installed on a DDR Extreme machine. Now, to back up a little bit, over the summer, Sammy had me come to his house in New Jersey to test this out. So he picked me up, he drove me out to New Jersey. He had the DDR machine in his garage, and he had me test it out. I wasn't there really for a long time, and the only thing I remember about that, I thought it was really cool because there were songs on home version Extreme that weren't in the arcade. But I do remember stealthing in the heat of the night and AAAing it on the machine. And then just the one try, I was like, let me try in the heat of the night on stealth. I tried and I AAA'd it. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't remember if I played any 10-footers or so on and so forth, but for the Ironman division in this tournament, it was like, what I believe was like the home version of Legend Road, I think, which had like 15 or 20 songs on it. And I don't remember like that being a difficult thing. Like Max Period wasn't that difficult in my head. And then there, like all the 10-footers that were in there weren't considered difficult to me. But I don't know if like the Ironman was like double elimination or whatever, but like the pads were giving out when I was playing. I was on the pad with either that guy Kaza from Florida or Technic, and I was playing Max Unlimited, and I failed. That wouldn't have made any sense. Like I wasn't gonna fail Max Unlimited. Like for me to miss a step, but even back then I wasn't really missing greats. Yeah, like I get greats in the beginning, step, jump, but not like missing. And I wound up failing Unlimited. And like, I think maybe there was another round of it, and I like the pads were like, they weren't really working that well for me anyway. Like, and because it was an Oni course, like I failed. Like it wasn't that I failed because I missed a bunch of steps. It was that like I would get something besides like a marvelous, perfect, or great, and I would lose a battery meter, and then like I was out. So I remember being really upset about that. And MTV was there for that, and I think I had to explain to them, I was like, this is not the main event. Like I didn't lose out of the tournament. There's There's a Sunday division, and that's the one that I'm really focused on. But I remember going up to Sammy and telling him the pads didn't work. I wanted a refund, he wouldn't give me a refund, and I was kind of upset about it. But I just decided to focus on the expert division. But I really did want to win that Ironman division. It was like a personal thing for me, because I really did like the idea of Ironman. I didn't like Ironman as it related to like combining it with Oni courses, because I feel like it takes away then it's just like, we're gonna make you play without the bar. That's all Ironman really is, if you make people play Oni courses. And then the Ironman tournament and the CSA2 tournament that me and Reflex and JSB were in, that was like the early days of DDR and the early days of Extreme. So that was a little different, but I feel like as things evolve, like the word in and of itself, Ironman, is like, it's supposed to be this rigorous thing. And I felt like it was fun when we would do Ironman just for fun. Like back in the day, we would go Coney Island or Broadway City and we would have like Ironman sets where we would just play until we couldn't play anymore. So I didn't really like the fact that it was an Oni course, but that wasn't the problem. The problem to me were the pads. The standard division of this tournament, like I said, I didn't really pay attention. I believe that a New Jersey player a DDR player from New Jersey named Jai, I think he got first place in that tournament. And I think maybe Sarcastic Mofo, who at some point had changed his nickname to Hispanic Guy, got second place in that tournament. I think that's how it played out. But they were both kind of involved in like the standard regular division tournaments. And then there was a Staten Island DDR player named Maurice, and he used to enter those tournaments as well. And he might have placed in Ironman. Maybe he got second. I don't really remember. I think Jai got first though. So, you know, like I said, leading up to this tournament, I had been practicing. I didn't know who was going to show up. I didn't feel like there was a reason for anybody to not show up. If it was just based on like, if you had the means to come and you thought you were really good, you should have been there. There was no reason. If the first prize was $2,000, if it cost you $400 to get there, you would have made that back. You would have made a profit. So whoever was going to be there should have been there. I really wish that this whole tournament was recorded. The final matches were recorded, which I'll talk about, but I wish that this tournament was recorded, like more of it was recorded. There were some memorable things in that tournament. I remember seeing the Italian player Quererno. I think I remember seeing him play 10-footers and SDG and 10-footers. I don't think he did many options things, but I think he used to play on his toes, but I remember seeing him play a lot of 10-footers and picking 10-footers on people. I remember seeing Big Matt pick. Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember seeing Matt pick so deep on 2x S4R on somebody, which that was hard. Like when you sped it up, if you put things that were like 140, 150 beats per minute on 2x S4R, that was like playing max 300 on S4R. So I think I remember seeing Matt pick that on somebody. So deep on 2x S4R was one of those things that like me and Fat Axel and Andre were doing that. So Matt couldn't have picked that on me, but that was a thing where like that would catch somebody by surprise. AdamSTF and Gilbert were in that tournament too, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. But for me, it was I was like a shark out for blood. I'd already seen who was there. I already seen who I was sizing. I was sizing up. This is who I was sizing up. It was Pickles, JBoy. At first it was the Italian player. It was Big Goblin. And Reflex at first. But after he started playing, I realized that he hadn't been keeping up, so I wasn't really worried about him after I saw him. I saw that Andre Jinx wasn't there. I saw that JSB wasn't there. And those were really the only two people that I would have been like, if anybody was going to be crazy enough to play the stuff that I was playing, it would have been that. I expected to see other people there, but those are the people that I was like sizing up, and those are the people who were like really good, who were there, and Technic also. You know, I had 6 option stuff lined up. I had hidden shuffle flat stuff lined up. I had sudden shuffle flat stuff lined up. I
I had 2x S4R stuff lined up for like the 150, 170 beats per minute, 200 beats per minute stuff. The only thing that I was scared of that I could not do, that I didn't know anybody could do, was bag on hidden shuffle flat. That was the only thing that I like. If somebody wanted to go like tit for tat with me, and like I picked a 10-footer on S4R and they failed it, but then they picked bag on hidden shuffle flat, that was it. What we were doing back then, we had gotten it down to bag on 1.5 hidden shuffle flat. Me, Chris Fyre, and Fat Axel were playing that. I remember that. So that was the best that I could do confidently and like get like a low digit grade AA on. But bag on like 1x hidden shuffle flat, that was where I was like, if somebody's gonna pull this out in the finals, that's what it's gonna be. So I was like, all right. Like anybody else that was or wasn't there, I had seen people put option stuff on Aaron in Japan. They had like a thread, like a accomplishments thread, and I had seen people put stuff up there, but it was nothing that I couldn't do. It was nothing I couldn't do. I saw people put stuff up, and I had put stuff up like months prior to that, and I saw people like playing the stuff that I was playing like 4 or 5 months later and putting up scores, and I was just like, all right, like this is like, they're like, people are trailing me. Got it. Like I wasn't really concerned about that. It was just bag. But you know, the thing was like people were so reliant on speed that like the only person that I was really thinking about when it came to bag was Pickles. Out of everybody who was really there, I was like, yo, if anybody is gonna pull that out, it's gonna be him because he plays on 1x. So one of the matches for me that was memorable. So I'm playing, right? Like, and I'm like going through the tournament, watching people play. And one of the matches that comes up is Big Goblin. So like I have to play him. Now, I don't know if what I'm about to say, I don't know if that happened after me and him knew we were gonna play each other, or like I just wasn't sure if I was gonna play him, or maybe we looked at the bracket and we were like, if we're gonna win, we'll wind up playing each other. But I was on one of the casual pads, messing around, warming up, and I think the person I was playing with, I think what happened was the person I was playing with picked PSMO. I don't know, maybe they wanted to try to do it. It was, I feel like it might have been Spencer, like that I was playing with, but maybe it wasn't. I remember Spencer being in this area around this time. I remember seeing Spencer, and Spencer used to play DDR with somebody else who doesn't play anymore. For anybody who knows Spencer, who doesn't know Spencer, is like, after I stopped playing, he had stepped up to be like one of the better in the group and DDR players in New York City. So anyway, I'm playing. I want to say it might have been Spencer. Maybe it was like another DDR player named Ivan who is from New York City too. And like one of us, I think it was the person picked PSMO. So when I kind of turned around to stretch, I saw Big Goblin watching me. So I was like, I'm not gonna play he doesn't play near me, so he doesn't really know what I do and don't play. Nobody in New York City would have picked PSMO on me because like I was pretty much the best person in New York City at PSMO. But he didn't, Big Goblin didn't play with me. So I don't know if this is why it turned out, but he was watching us play like from a distance, like maybe 15, 20 feet away behind a bunch of people. So I played PSMO, but I purposely did really bad. I got like 40, 41 greats on it. I was playing the long game. I was like, he's watching me, so I'm trying to like line him up basically. Like if he thinks I'm bad at this and he picks it on me, no problem, right? So, you know, I got like 40 something greats on purpose on PSMO, which I had to try. Like I played PSMO so much, I really had to try to get like 40, like me like messing around on PSMO back then, I would have gotten like 15, 20 greats, like messing around. So I had to like purposely like get greats and look like I was struggling. So what wound up happening was me and him got to the match that we like where we were gonna play each other. And by the way, like me and Tim, Big Goblin, like me and him were cool when we played back then. Like
he was way better than me back in the earlier days of Extreme and all that. Like I always liked when him and White Silence came up to 8 on the break or whatever. Like it was cool. It was cool seeing him at a tournament. So like he picked PSMO on me, and I feel like that was because of him seeing me play casually. He put it on I think he put it on 1.5 regular, no shuffle or anything. So I had to match that. I don't know why I got 13 greats, but I got 13 greats on him. He got 17 greats. So it could have been tournament nerves or something. Like I was mad that I got the 13 greats, but he got more greats than I did. So now like he picked it on me, but he lost on his own pick. And you know, what I remember about Big Goblin was like he was a speed player, he was a speed bar player. So like if I was gonna use like one of the songs that I had up my sleeve, it was gonna be on him. But the grand finale song was Paranoia Survivor Max Oni on Sudden Shuffle Flat. But I was gonna save that for whenever I got to the finals. But for him, I knew he was a speed player, so I said, all right. I picked My Summer Love, the remix, which was also like 100 beats per minute or 90 beats per minute. It was a very slow song. And I picked it on Hidden Shuffle Flat, 1X Hidden Shuffle Flat. And I remember seeing the beginning of the song play out, and I remember like playing it and seeing him get like the first couple steps. Perfect, great. Miss, and he failed like within the first 10 seconds of the song. And that's how like I knew. This is one of the reasons why when I talk about it, and that's not to downplay his accomplishments, because I think he's one of the greatest DDR Extreme players. Like if you talk about DDR Extreme, like you got to talk about him. Like he put in a lot of work. If you go on YouTube, well, before YouTube, him and White Silence and Max Paranoia, like the DMV area players, they used to make tutorials on like how to play 10-footers. And they would put them up online, and people, you know, this was before streaming, so we would all download them. Like I had watched those videos, so like this is not to downplay like how good of a player Big Goblin was, but in this match, like he picked PSMO on me on 1.5 regular, and I beat him in that. And then I picked My Summer Love remix on 1X Hidden Shuffle Flat, and I think I don't remember how many greats I got. It was less than 20. I might have SDG'd it. I feel like I got like 9 and a miss, but maybe I got more than 10 greats. And he lost by like over 100 perfects. Like Hidden Shuffle Flat, like that was the thing. It wasn't just the 10-footers on Sudden Shuffle Flat. And I don't know who. Like, so I must have put him in the losers bracket. I don't know who he played where he got eliminated from the tournament, but that match was so memorable to me because I was like this guy has so many AAAs, and that's one of the reasons why like I never like this, like all of my practice had led up to a moment like this. So yeah, he failed it. I don't remember what the third song was. And this is just me speaking my truth, you know? Like, Tim was one of the best players at that tournament. Not if you're not talking about me and the shuffle, the option stuff, Tim, Pickles, and Technic were like 3 of the best people at this tournament. If you're talking about like standard, like what people standardly consider like good DDR players, how many AAAs do people have? It was Tim. Like it was Big Goblin, it was Pickles, and it was Technic, and maybe JBoy. I don't really know how many AAA. He had a lot of AAAs too, I think, but like it was really like Big Goblin, Pickles, and Technic. If you're talking about like who's like good in terms of AAAs, so I just want to make sure that I like emphasize that. Like that win meant a lot to me, but playing him meant a lot to me, and he definitely was an influence on like me playing DDR. He used to compete when 123 Kid competed, and you know, the people before him, like the guy that Deshaun played in the Sports World tournament that Deshaun won, his nickname was Zeus, and I think maybe Tim used to play with him too. So like the history of New York City and Maryland, Virginia, the DC area goes back all the way to like 7th mix up until this tournament, and like all the Kings of the Coast tournaments, and Digital Life 2004 and so on and so forth. So, I just want to emphasize that, like, I'm talking about it because it does mean a lot to me, but that's not to diminish how good Tim was in DDR. He was a phenomenal DDR player. One of the more memorable moments of this tournament, also for me, was like I was like watching Pickles like a hawk. Like I wanted to see what he was gonna do. He had lost to Reflex the previous year. He got 2nd place, so I felt like he was coming down from Canada, like he was doing this to win. This guy came from another country, so like he was doing it like he was intent on winning this tournament. And I mentioned Gilbert in a couple of my previous videos, but we had a DDR player named Gilbert, who, for Gilbert's age, Gilbert was really good at DDR. Gilbert was younger than us by a lot. So Gilbert was really short. For Gilbert's height, really good at DDR. Like almost not as good as us, but like we couldn't just like be like, oh, I'm playing Gilbert in a tournament, I'll be okay. You have to like try to be Gilbert. So the thing was that Gilbert was going up against Pickles in his match. I remember like it was me and Gilbert and AdamSTF standing off to the side before the match started. And Gilbert was like, I don't know what to pick. So Gilbert used to play options with me. And Gilbert was like, I don't know what to pick. But Gilbert used to play options with me. So I said to Gilbert, you play PSMO on S4R with me, pick that on him. I don't remember at this time if Gilbert could pass PSMO on S4R, but I think my logic was like, if both of y'all are gonna fail, maybe you'll get more perfects than Pickles. But with Gilbert, we had put Gilbert through the mud with us too. Like Gilbert had played all the option stuff with us. So I said, pick PSMO and S4R. So me and Adam watched the match. And I remember Gilbert picking PSMO on S4R on Pickles. And the beginning of the match starts up, and I wasn't watching Gilbert. I was watching Pickles. And the beginning of the match starts up, and Pickles is like struggling. He failed within like 20-30 seconds. And I just remember me and Adam looking at each other. We didn't even say anything. We just looked at each other because Adam knew what that meant and I knew what that meant. Because the fact that he failed kind of meant that like it wasn't that he was trying to throw us off or me off, because he didn't know if Gilbert could do that or not. Pickles didn't know if Gilbert could do that or not. So I just remember looking at Adam and Adam looking at me, and just like we didn't say anything to each other, but we knew what that meant, because that meant that if I played Pickles, that's what I was gonna pick on him. Or if like I got to the finals and he was in the finals, I was gonna pick PSMO and S4 on him. To be clear, like on like the more sloppy shuffle patterns for PSMO, I wouldn't even gotten like a B. I would have still gotten an A. It just would have been like a sloppy A. But I had double-A'd it here and there. Most of the time I would get an A, like 80-something greats and like 4 to 6 misses, or like enough goods, boos, or misses so that I wouldn't get a double A. But like I was like locked into PSMO on S4R. So when Gilbert picked it on Pickles, and they both wound up failing it, but Pickles wound up winning that match, I knew what it was if I was gonna play Pickles. I would have picked it on him anyway. But like that was like assurance. I wanted Gilbert to win. Gilbert was from New York City, so I wanted Gilbert to win. But that was just like, unless he was playing bag on hidden shuffle flat, then this was gonna be a short thing for me. And there was like a little monkey wrench that was thrown in it, which I'll talk about. What wound up happening was, there was a couple more. There was one more memory that a lot of people from New York remember this. Reflex and Chris Fyre played each other in this tournament. So this was such a cool match. They were both really good. I think Reflex had like stopped playing, but he was still Reflex. Like he didn't. It had only been a year since Digital Life 2004, so like a lot of his stuff was, he didn't lose it really. So Reflex and Chris Fyre were playing each other, and I don't know if one of them picked Wild Rush on Hidden Shuffle Flat, or the third song was Wild Rush on Hidden Shuffle Flat. But at some point, they both played Wild Rush on Hidden Shuffle Flat. Now, as somebody who is not like a musician, or like I didn't take music theory or anything like that, I'm gonna try to explain this best I can. For those who don't know, Wild Rush is a song in DDR where like it starts off kind of slow, and every 4 to 12 measures it speeds up. Like it gets like a tempo change of like 20 to 30 beats per minute or something like that. So after like the third or fourth tempo change, a lot of the arrows fall on the eighth of a note, like in between the beat. So I think it's just the whole, I believe it's just like this whole portion of the tempo change. It's like you're stepping and the arrows are separated by like a quarter of a note, but they all fall on the eighth note. So it doesn't fall on the beat, it falls in between the beat. They got up to that part. They were both doing okay for the most part, but they got up to that part. And what happened was, I think that Chris Fyre didn't realize that was the part where I'm pretty sure he played Wild Rush enough, but he didn't. It was on shuffle, it was on hidden, and it was on flat. So I don't think he realized that they were on that part. So he's stepping on the beat, like the fourth notes, like as if they're fourth notes. But Reflex knew that part, and he started stepping on the eighth notes in between the beat, and realized that Chris Fyre didn't understand. And in order to like not give it away, he started like tiptoeing on the pad, so as to not allow Chris Fyre to like catch the beat. So Chris couldn't hear Reflex's steps, and Chris failed the song because of that part. And we thought it was so cool and amazing that he picked his arms up and he was just like doing that. So Reflex picked his arms up and he was just like tiptoeing through that whole part, so that Chris Fyre couldn't hear his steps, and Chris Fyre failed, and I think he lost that match. And that was really memorable. When we talk about Digital Life 2005, we talk about Reflex and everything. That was what, I don't even know if Brendan remembers that, but it was cool to see that. It was cool to see tactics like that in tournaments, I don't remember who eliminated Brendan, but I think I do remember being at a McDonald's by the Jacob Javits Center, and I think this was the night before the finals. And I feel like Brendan was already out of the tournament, and I remember Brendan talking to me. He's like, how are you doing all these 10-footers on S4R? And it was cool to talk to him about that, because like me and him have been like this for so long. Well, for pretty much all 2004. And at some points Brendan was better than me, but like, it was kind of like this. But like, I guess he had stopped playing, so Brendan was good on shuffle even in 2005, but he wasn't like playing what we were playing. So I remember him talking to me about it in McDonald's, and it was just like, wow, like this is like a guy I used to compete with. He just stopped playing, and he's like asking me like, how do you guys do that? He genuinely wanted to know like how we were playing all these options stuff, and we were talking about options and stuff. And remember, there was like 20-30 of us in McDonald's, like in the upper area, eating and just hanging out.
that night. We're all tired from playing DDR all day, and but it was cool too because Brendan had won 2004, so he was already a champion, you know. And me and him were friends, so like we were just talking about options. So the day of the final of like the finals comes up, and this is, you know, I already know how this plays out because I'm talking about it. This was like one of the best days of my life, one of the most memorable days of my life. Me and Pickles were in the winners finals, I believe. And JBoy, I think he was like at the losers final. So in general, what would happen is, I think I would have guessed that me and Pickles would have played to see who was going to be the winner of the winners finals, and the loser would have to go to losers finals and play JBoy. I don't know if Pickles had put JBoy in losers or whatever, or maybe somebody else did, I don't know. But Sammy threw this wrench in this tournament. I felt like strangling him, like metaphorically. Like he put this thing where me and Deshaun were talking about this, me and Perfect Asymmetry, where Sammy would always do like, he would always have these spectacles like for the tournaments. Like it wouldn't just be a normal tournament, it would be something like extra. So what he did was he made the three of us play in grand finals, and I believe it was I think each of us got to pick a song, and I think this is the way, I think this is how it went. Just looking at the rules real quick to see if it's listed in here, but yeah, so it says in here, it's like, it says finals will involve 3 people, the 2 finalists of the winner's bracket and the winner of the loser's bracket. And I think the way that it wound up being was, I got to pick a song and the options. Pickles got to pick a song and the options. And I think something along the lines of, I think JBoy got to pick a song, but we got to pick the options because he was in losers, I believe. And then there was like a 4th song that was like an edit. So it was weird, and I really I wasn't happy about it because I was like, come, like I worked so hard, and like this weird rule, like why are we doing this? You know, like it's like we should just let the tournament play out the way it was. So, we weren't allowed to see the other people play until after we played because we weren't allowed to see what shuffle pattern it was, because you know, like it would be the same shuffle pattern if you just keep it and you don't like mix it up or anything. So the first song I believe that we played, I feel like the first song was Bag. And I think the notable thing about that, like I think that it might have been JBoy who picked this, but I could be getting the details mixed up about this. But so we played Bag, and I think all 3 of us got the same amount of grace. We got the same exact score on Bag, I believe. I think it was all 3 of us got 13 grades. It was like Bag, and I think that me and Pickles, I think me and Pickles had agreed to play it on like 2x or 3x or something like that, and we all got the same score, I believe. I think it was just weird. We were all like, what? Like that's crazy. So that was Bag, right? So that essentially didn't really do anything because we were all tied. The second song was My Summer Love on Hidden Shuffle Flat. And this is one of the biggest regrets that I have about this tournament. No, I'm sorry. That's incorrect. The second song was Orion 0.78 AM Euro Mix on Hidden Shuffle Flat. It was such a big regret because Pickles, I'm pretty sure this was Pickles' pick. I think he picked Orion 0.78 AM Euromix. This song, it was one of the slow songs. It was like 90, 100 beats per minute. But this was one of the hardest slow songs, not counting Bag. The regular My Summer Love was also kind of difficult because the middle has just like a bunch of 16th notes. So you got to keep track of when to double step. But Orion was one of the most difficult songs on Hidden Shuffle Flat. And the thing was, I had been practicing this. Like, this was one of the songs that I was going to pick on somebody. But I think I've been so focused on other stuff that I wasn't completely locked into this song. So when he picked it, I wasn't even really sweating it. Like, I was just like, cool. Like, either he can AAA this or we're good, because like my best on this on Hidden Shuffle Flat might have been like 4 or 5 greats. Maybe it was like 4 or 5 greats and like a miss. But like, I wasn't worried about it. But every once in a while in Hidden Shuffle Flat, if you misstep, you lose like 4 or 5 steps. Like, you'll misstep and you gotta like wait for a few arrows before you catch up. So what wound up happening was, halfway through the song, I was good. I was doing okay. I had greats here and there, but I tripped up. I misstepped and I lost like 4 or 5 arrows and I failed it. And I feel like that was a bad representation of my skill level. It wasn't that I couldn't do that. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day in the tournament I failed it. But it was like, this was one of the songs that I was going to use on somebody, and somebody picked it on me, and I misstepped and I failed it. And it was disappointing. I was really disappointed in myself, because it put me winning the tournament in jeopardy. Pickles passed it, and the thing was, I remember me and him had around the same perfects. He had more perfects than me, but not by much, like maybe like 5 or 10 more perfects than me. But I just failed it because I missed like 4 or 5 steps in a row. Like, my meter went down and I failed it. I was really disappointed in myself for that. JBoy failed this. So that was that. The next song, so now I'm mad because I failed it. Now I'm like, I was already hyped up for this grand finals, but now I'm amped. I'm just like let's go. Like, I'm like, now I'm playing PSMO. Now I wasn't necessarily mad at Pickles, because I was supposed to pass that. Me playing Orion, it was just a matter of who was going to get more perfects. Like, I could have won that I could have potentially won that if I didn't fail it. But now I'm just like, all right, let's go. Let's play PSMO. Let's play PSMO on S4. So, that's what we're doing. So now I'm just like, all right. So I'm pacing back and forth on the pad, and Perfect Asymmetry is helping run the tournament. So I'm telling him, he's like, what song? And something to the effect of, I'm not even looking at him. Like, he's kind of not even there. Like, nobody is even there. It's just me and the machine. And I'm just like, now I want to play. Now we're playing. So, like, I hear him ask me, like, what song? Like, Paranoid Survivor Max. I'm pacing. Like, I'm just like a lion. I'm just like pacing back and forth. And, what difficulty? Challenge. And I hear Frequency in the background, like, announcing Paranoid Survivor Max. Paranoid Survivor Max on challenge. He might have asked me, like, what's the options? Sudden Shuffle Flat. I'm just like, I'm ready. I'm ready. So Perfect Asymmetry does all that. I think he asked me if I was ready, but it's just me and the machine. That's really all that exists. And I'm hearing Deshaun like ask me, kind of almost like in the distance, like what it is. This is how the whole thing played out for me. All the summertime practice and the people like pushing me around, it all led up to this moment. This was like the moment. It was like this singularity of like time where no matter who was on the pad, they were gonna get this. It was almost like I was telling people afterwards, I was like, I could feel every nerve in my body. Like, I could feel every fiber of my being, like everything I felt, and it was just me and the DDR machine. So Deshaun clicks the button for me to start. I grab on the pad, I slam on the pad with both of my feet. Now my adrenaline is like sky high. I'm ready to go. Song starts up. I don't remember the shuffle pattern being like one of the really messed up ones. There are a couple of easier variations of the PSMO shuffle. It wasn't the easy ones. There's a couple of ones that are really screwed up, in my opinion. I don't think it was one of them. It could have been, because it definitely wasn't the easy ones.
because the easy ones I was able to double A almost every time I played it. And at that time, because I was so amped up, I probably would have double A'd those. So it could have been either one of the really difficult ones or like the medium level ones in my opinion. So I played through the whole thing. I was mad that I was hyped that I got an A, but I was kind of mad that I didn't double A it. But I didn't double A it. I got 80 something greats, I believe, and I had enough misses that it wasn't a double A. But I was ready. I was geared up. So I played it. That's it. Pickles plays it. I think he lasted longer than he did when Gilbert picked it on him, but he failed it before he even got to the end runs. He had failed it. Like, he was struggling. So now in my head, I'm just like, cool, we all tied on bag. I don't know who was playing bag, who I was playing bag with, or that I tied with. So I could be wrong about that, but I think we all tied on bag. I failed My Summer Love, and Pickles, he took the lead there. But now he failed on PSMO and I took the lead. But the way he failed on PSMO was not like how I failed on My Summer Love. So in my head, I'm in the lead. And JBoy failed on PSMO, but he really failed hard. Like he wasn't ready for that. The last song was an edit, and it was a Sakura edit. And I remember being a little bummed out about that too. I was like, man, like, what are we doing here? We played that, and I don't remember who got better score. I think I had gotten the highest score on that edit, because at that time I think they were tired. PSMO and S4R was regular to me. Like, I played that all the time, but I think they were wiped out, like JBoy and Pickles. So I don't think they did as good on that as they would have if they didn't play PSMO. And I think I got the high score on that, but I really wasn't sure because they were like making it so that we couldn't see each other play at one point. So I don't really remember who I saw play or who went first or whatever. And we weren't playing together. We were playing one at a time, so we couldn't see the other person play, and we couldn't see the steps. That's how Sammy had it set up. But I do remember seeing them. I do at some point remember seeing Pickles and JBoy play PSMO on S4 and Sakura, and I was so hyped and I was so living in the moment that I was like cheering them on. Like, I wanted to win, but I was like on the sidelines, like, let's fucking go, Mike, let's go, like play, keep going. Like, I was cheering them on, and I was like so hyped to be living in that moment. This was like me living my truth of like playing DDR in this setting, under these conditions, with these rules. I was like really living my passion. So I remember cheering them on for PSMO, and I remember cheering them on for Sakura, the Sakura edit. And at the end of it all, they had calculated the scores, and Don tried to make it a little dramatic, and Sketch's total score. And I think I was the last person to play the Sakura edit, maybe, because I think when he announced everything, he said something like, I need at least this score to either tie or come in first place. And when he said the score, it was significantly higher than what Pickles had, so I won. And it was just like the highlight. It was like one of the best feelings of my life. Like, me winning that tournament was one of the best feelings of my life. I had known the people who were running the tournament. I was friends with Sammy. I was friends with Frequency. I was friends with Perfect Asymmetry. And then Jim the Fly, actually the freestyler that I had mentioned in one of my previous videos, I think he was running the Freestyle Division. I knew Jim the Fly. And then a guy named Mike used to help Sammy run his tournaments. I think his nickname was Indo. And I knew Mike. Is anybody else I'm forgetting? Like, I knew them, but they were being very distant with me and me and all the New York people, because they didn't want to, well, Don and Deshaun were. Like, Sammy and Jim the Fly and Mike were from New Jersey, so that wasn't necessarily a thing. But, Don didn't want to come off as like being biased or whatever. Like, he wanted to make it so that it was fair. So I won. He announced it. Everybody rushed. I was crying. I was like hugging my friends, and everybody rushed. Sammy you could see a video of Sammy's trying to stop people from rushing, but like there was like so many people that just rushed and congratulated me and hugged me, and they were happy that I won, and I was so happy that I won. I got a big trophy for that. I got $2,000 cash for that. I gave a bunch of shout outs before I won, and I gave shout outs, I think like not Sammy, I think Frequency had interviewed each one of us before we played. And I don't know if I have the videos for Mike, Pickles, or JBoy, but I have my video where like I was talking about like what he was like, what are you gonna do if you win, and blah blah blah, and you know, I gave a bunch of shout outs there. But when I won, they asked me how it felt. Best feeling of my life. I think he asked me if I knew I was gonna win. I was like, yeah, like I knew I was gonna win. It didn't matter who was gonna be there. They were gonna get it. They were gonna get that. They were gonna get it. They was gonna get all the hidden shuffle flat stuff, and that wasn't even it. It was Legend of Max on Sudden Shuffle flat. It was PSM Heavy on Sudden Shuffle flat. It was Max Unlimited on Sudden Shuffle. All the 10-footers on Sudden Shuffle flat. Drop out on 1.5 S4R. I think at that time, I think I had passed it on 2X S4R. I think I had it on 5X Shuffle. Like there was so many things up my sleeve, but it was really PSMO S4R, and I hadn't passed it on 1.5X S4R, but that was really what I was gunning for. If it was gonna be anything, it would have actually been PSMO on 1.5 S4R. I didn't have enough time to practice that. I was working and going to school at that time, and it was just, I didn't have enough time to get that, but that's what it really would have been. That was really my goal. My goal was Paranoid Survivor Max on challenge on 1.5 Sudden Shuffle flat, but I wasn't there yet. JSB is the only person at that time who was documented passing PSMO on 1.5 S4R. And because of that, that was where I was going. That was like that's where I was going with it. So this is the best feeling of my life. After the whole thing kind of played out, like all my friends were like congratulating me, and like I had the money. So I had 2 G's, I had two stacks in my pocket. So my friend Russ he's a really tall guy. So Russ was like around me the whole time. Nobody wanted anything to happen to me. I didn't want anything to happen to me. But Russ, if people saw Russ with me, I was probably good. So we were all getting ready to leave and like packing up, and then, you know, all the tournament organizers were doing their own thing and packing up. But right before I left, Don called me over. He gave me like a really big hug, and it was really nice for Don to do that. I think me and Don had a bit of an argument on DDR Freak about the rules early on, and it wasn't really a falling out. It was just like, it was enough for me it was memorable, where like Don was my friend, but we had an argument about the rules, and it was a disagreement. So it was nice for him to like, we had made up before that, I think, but like he congratulated me because the tournament was already over. It wasn't anything like there was bias or anything like that. You know, those finals were recorded. They were put online. I felt like I was on top of the world. And it felt good to follow what I loved doing. And it felt good to finally like exhale from in the groove and not feel so pressured with all like the bantering and like the snide remarks about like, oh, you still play extreme. You know, there was a lot of people doing that at that time. It was that, and like I said, it was that until somebody AAA something. Then it was like, oh, I AAA this, you know. So like, I guess the term I'm looking for, it felt good in spite of the in the groove community to put all that time and effort into DDR Extreme and win under like those conditions. No stealth, no grinding, no nothing. It's just mostly shuffle patterns and options, like raw skill, raw sight read, reflexes, you know, skill. And that's not to say like people AAAing stuff or whatever is not skill. I'm just talking about a different level of skill. A different level of skill, not grind culture. Like, you see it, you know what the song sounds like, you know this is tick, but this is just like skill, you know, like a different level of skill. So that was really good. And I remember like doing the shout outs at the end of the tournament and being like, you know, don't listen to what people say, play what you love. Like if you love playing something, play what you love. And that kind of still stands the test of time. Back then I didn't know it, but people still do that with Marvel vs. Capcom 2. People still do that with Smash Brothers Melee. People are passionate about what they like if they like it, you know? I've spoken a lot about like
how In the Groove was its own game and DDR was its own game. And back then it was really cloudy. That thought wasn't as straightforward as I think it is now. So I was kind of like, me taking that stance was kind of scary. It wasn't really scary, but it was just like a lot of people weren't taking that stance, and a lot of the top players were really pushing In the Groove, and a lot of snide remarks were being made about still playing DDR Extreme. But I really stuck with it, and I liked it. And at some point in this tournament, this is not related, but at some point in this tournament, I won a Cobalt Flux pad, because I remember being in my house. I don't know if it was for freestyle, maybe it was for freestyle, but I thought I don't remember how I won the Cobalt Flux, because I thought we won the Poppin' Music controller. But I had a Cobalt Flux in my house. Maybe I had traded it or I bought it off of somebody with some of my tournament money. But I went home with a Cobalt Flux too. And I remember playing that for a while, having it hooked up to my computer and having it hooked up to my PS2 and playing DDR on Stepmania and stuff. And just back then, like, it, like, from what I remember, like, playing at home was like not even regarded at all. Like, I wasn't, like, I think I got a lot of cool scores on like a lot of the Stepmania stuff and like Dragon Force stuff, and there was like this song called M that had a lot of steps in it, a lot of 16-0 streams, and I think I AAA'd a lot of stuff at home that we just didn't talk about it back then. Like, it just wasn't regarded. It was almost embarrassing to be like, oh, I AAA'd, you know, Max Unlimited at home, like on foot on the Cobalt Flux pad. But that's just how it was. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with that. That's just kind of how it was. Like, home version was like, you didn't really talk about it back then. If you had an arcade near you or anything, like, I had arcades all over the place. So like, there was no point in me putting up home version scores. But I do remember doing that, and I remember playing Extreme 2 and like freestyling on my pad the next day, and just feeling like I was on top of the world. It was such a great feeling being on LiveJournal. There was an issue on LiveJournal. Like, this was so long ago, so I'm not holding any grudges or anything. But I remember JBoy going back home and really shitting on like New York City, like really crapping on New York City and crapping on the tournament. And I really took offense to that, because there was no friction when he was there. There was no bad blood when he was there. It was just competitiveness. He got third place. You know, it wasn't anything like that. But he had a LiveJournal, and he really crapped on like the whole experience. And I remember getting on his LiveJournal, being really upset that he took that stance. He got third place. He did really good, but his stance was like, I wasn't really happy with his stance. And I remember going on there and like kind of arguing with him. I remember in the whole midst of like me winning and them announcing the winner and everybody rushing me and congratulating me, I remember Pickles coming up to me and congratulating me, and I remember him leaning in and saying, like, you are the heart and soul of New York City DDR. I think that's exactly what he said to me. And that was really nice to hear him say that. I just think that, like, I think he either said that or he said, like, you embody the heart and soul of New York City DDR. And that it just felt good to hear. Like, one of the best players in the world. He was like he was in the spotlight for all the AAAs that he done, and he played on 1X. He played without the bar, and to hear him say that was really good, because I had been following him for a long time. A lot of us have followed him. Going Iron in Japan, he had a bunch of new AAAs up. I don't know if he AAA'd Extreme, but he was close. Like, he would put up crazy AAAs. I think he AAA'd Bag. Might have AAA'd PSMO. Like, he had 10 footers AAA'd. He had all the weird songs AAA'd. And, you know, even going back to like when I passed Legend Road in 04 without the bar, and I had shouted him out all the way up until this tournament, and to hear him say that to me, it felt good, you know. Afterwards, at the end of 2005, because this tournament was like in September, October,
I believe it was in October. Afterwards, Options kind of inspired a lot of people in New York. So like I remember even Sarcastic Mofo and Maurice, I remember them, they weren't really big on like the high level stuff that me and Fat Axel and AdamSTF and Chris Fyre and Dino and Big Matt were playing. But I remember even them, they were like, I'm gonna start playing Options, and they were playing Options for a little bit just because of how the tournament turned out and how exciting it was to be part of that. So that was cool. And then there was like after this tournament, I retired, but there was a small push after that, and I was like, the itch that I had for bag, because nobody really went down that path, was like, I really wanted to try to learn bag on hidden shuffle flat. But I didn't, like, this tournament kind of closed so many, it put closure to a lot of stuff for me. So the passion just wasn't there for me to play as much as I used to. So I never got around to that. I think after the tournament, I remember Chris Fyre playing that a lot. I just remember him playing bag on 1.5 hidden shuffle flat. And I remember trying to play that to keep up with him, but I had won the tournament. So I didn't really feel that drive and passion that I once had. But I, like, in my head, I was just like I just want to be able to at least pass bag on hidden shuffle flat. That was just a tall order, and I never got around to doing that. I may have done it at home, but I don't want to say that I did that because I don't really remember that specifically. 1.5 hidden shuffle flat, I was able to do, and double A that. The last thing that I really did was, I knew that this was my time, that my time to play DDR was over. And the grinding of AAAs that I had spoken about in my previous videos wasn't something that we liked or respected or did in New York City. But for my own personal reasons, there were songs that I wanted to AAA, and they weren't 10-footers because I had played the 10-footers enough. It was just like tricky 9-footers. There were 3 songs in particular that I did this with. I did it with Vanity Angel because I really liked the way that song sounded. And I would listen to that song on train rides, and I don't know, the song just meant a lot to me. I don't know why, it just meant a lot to me. So I did it with Vanity Angel. I AAA Vanity Angel after this tournament, like a couple weeks after. I went to South Beach Arcade to do this. And they had an Extreme, I don't know what it was called. I think it was called Extreme Plus, where you could put stuff on like 0.5 and 0.25 speed, and they had like a couple of extra options and so on and so forth. So like, I think it was on when they did that to the Extreme machine. So I did it with Vanity Angel. I did it with Cartoon Heroes, and I did it with Burning Heat. Those are the 3 songs that I AAA'd, and I said, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna see how long it takes. I did all that in the same day. I went down there within like an hour and a half. I think Cartoon Heroes took me a few tries, and Burning Heat took me a few tries, and Vanity Angel took me a few tries, and I was like, all right, I'm satisfied with that. Like, I'm okay with that. And I think I did Cartoon Heroes on 0.5. I think I AAA'd it on 0.5. I think I got 2 or 3 greats on Burning Heat. But this is just like another time where I was just like, this is after I retired, where I was just like, I'm gonna try to grind this out. I'm gonna play them over and over. I'm gonna play the same song over and over and over again. Put my credit in, Cartoon Heroes, Cartoon Heroes, Cartoon Heroes. But I retired. That was it. I was done. I was done playing DDR. At the end of it all, I had AAA'd all the 10-footers on S4R. Back then, that was nuts. That was enough for me to know that, like, and I had gotten to use these 10-footers in tournament. So that was enough for me to know that I was doing what I needed to do. I passed Max 300 and Paranoia Survivor on 1.5 S4R. I don't think I passed it consistently enough to pick it in the tournament, but that was another thing that I could have pulled out if I wanted to. I never passed the harder ones like PSM Heavy or PSM Oni or LOM or Max Unlimited on 1.5 S4R. On Finger I did, and I was trying to move in the direction of being able to do it on foot, but I never passed those on 1.5 S4R. But at the end of it all, like that's what meant a lot to me. And as like kind of a side note, I used to I couldn't pick this in tournament, but what I was playing was the Bimani Ruler edit to the song A, and I think A was either 180 or 190 beats per minute with a lot of streams, and like you didn't really see people do that too often. Later on in 2000, like later in 2005, you had seen people do it here and there, but like 2004 and 2005 I was able to double A that, so I felt like that was also a testament, because that would destroy people. Like it just wasn't a time where people were doing streams at that speed. So me being able to double A the edit was it meant a lot to me. I'm not saying I was the only person back then who could do it. It's just, I know JSB did it, and I know later on down the line other people did it, but I remember looking online at that time and I didn't really see it going on when I had initially did it. Things really slowed down for options in New York. I think that the initial kick for options was like, because it was so passionate and epic that I won, and everybody, it felt like there was so much camaraderie around that time. But I think a couple months afterwards it kind of just died down, and In the Groove 2 gained a lot of traction. You had people who AAA'd Extreme, and people AAA'd Extreme. People were grinding out, I think there were a lot of people who were grinding out Legend Road Oni course scores, and people were just playing In the Groove too. And that's kind of just how everything kind of came to a head in New York City DDR, my time. I will make another video like wrapping up my final thoughts in 2006 and Supernova, DDR Supernova, because I retired after this tournament, but like it was like a wind down. It was like I did retire for this tournament, but like my DDR story doesn't end there. It kind of ends, it kind of trails off into 2006. This is very proud. It wasn't like a community-based thing. It was just like a very like friendship, new friendships were formed for me, and New York kind of went in a different direction and very In the Groove 2 heavy, which I mentioned in my previous videos. I'm not really qualified to talk about like the rise of In the Groove 2 and like how it really kicked off. You know, Spencer, Nick, Big Matt, like they're the people who would probably be better at talking about that. But you know, my passion for DDR at this time really I was able to express that in this tournament and in 2005, and it was just like my last ditch effort to be able to like prove to myself and to other people who were competing with me where I was coming from and my skill level. I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to do that, and I'm happy that people who met me in person respected me enough to really see where I was coming from, because I don't think a lot of the stuff that I said on forums translated well, and that could have been partially my fault, like maybe partially my fault, but partially, like I said in the beginning of this video, a lot of these people weren't competitive. They didn't come from that. They weren't cut from that cloth. And in New York, that's regular. Like you compete with, everything is competitive in New York City. And like to me, there was nothing wrong with saying who was the best. Which is related to this tournament. And before that, to me, it was nothing wrong with saying that 123 Kid was the best, or Perfect Asymmetry was the best, or Ironfoot was the best. Whoever was the best, or Take was the best, or Yasu was the best, or Aaron was almost the best. You know, there was nothing wrong with saying that to me. A lot of the community seemed like they wanted to shy away from that. And they didn't like talking about who was the best. And before I was where I was, if somebody was better than me, they were better than me. That was it, you know? But at this tournament, I got to prove that I was the best. MTV recorded that ending section where I won the tournament. It was like a 5-10 minute little mini documentary they did on me. They put it together. They put it on their website. It was on TV, on their show, that show that they called, it was called the G-Hole or something like that. And I got to be on MTV. I got to win $2,000, and I got to do it in a way that there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And to me, that meant the world. I remember calling my mom, who she was sick at this point, and telling her about it. And I remember her saying that she wished that she could have come to the tournament, because I had asked her. I was like, do you want to come? Like, I'll push you around in the wheelchair all day. My mom was on oxygen at this time, so she would have had to have an oxygen tank. And she didn't want to come. She wanted to come, but she didn't want to make it inconvenient for me. But after that, I remember her like talking to me on the phone, and her being like, "Oh, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have come." And I almost felt kind of bad that I didn't do more to convince her to come. But I remember talking to her, and her saying that she wishes that she was there. So I think that's everything for Digital Life 2005. This was the last era of the dominance of sketch for DDR. I'll probably talk about it in my other video, but I think it's fair to say that I have one of the most commercially successful DDR resumes in DDR history. I was on MTV 3 times for DDR. I was in I think the magazine Time Out New York did an article on me for DDR. And I was in a YouTube video for that 2004 that hit 1 million views and that was shown on the front page of YouTube back when that was like a big deal. 1 million views back when that was a big deal. I was in a music video for DDR for a mindless self-indulgence called Never Wanted to Dance. There's a YouTube channel, and it's called Domix, and I was mentioned in one of those for DDR. I have an Urban Dictionary entry on DDR. This is back when it was cool that I had an Urban Dictionary entry on DDR. And then a lot of the videos that wound up on YouTube when YouTube first popped off had a lot of views. Nowadays, it's not considered a lot. Like a few thousand views per video is not a lot, but back then it was still something that I was happy about, I might be forgetting stuff, but I was also on the news for DDR in like late 2003, early 2004. So, DDR, I don't know the intricacies of the community now. I don't know the ups and downs of like how DDR is now, but it does seem like unfortunately, because of Konami, it doesn't seem like it is where it should be. I think that people who play DDR now should be able to eat and live off of DDR. If you're one of the best DDR players in the world, that should be your job. The same way that people who play Mortal Kombat professionally or Counter-Strike professionally or League of Legends professionally can eat off of that. If you're like top 20 DDR players in the world, or you're like you should be able to do that for a living if that's your passion. And because of the way that Konami has really treated the game, you can't. So on the one hand, it's fair to say that I'm one of the more commercially successful DDR players, even though I stopped playing in 2005, and I'm very proud of that. But on the other hand, it's really unfortunate that that's the case. Whether or not that would have been true if Konami had taken care of the DDR community the right way, I still think that if you wrote a book on the history of DDR, you can't write a book without mentioning me. If you did, you'd be inaccurate. There are a lot of people, and this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this series, who were forgotten, because I feel like this community is kind of like, not the community, but like just the way the whole thing played out with Konami and some things with the community. It's kind of lost. Like the way that it kind of played out.
And now it's just this community that's trying to like, I think now there's like, it's just like, it seems like they're trying to put something together, but there's really no reason for the community to be in the state that it's in, from what I know. Like, it should be that like, there should be $100,000 first prize DDR tournament. Konami should be doing that kind of stuff. The next big Street Fighter tournament that's being sponsored by Capcom, the first prize is $1 million. There's no, DDR has been out for over 20 years. There's no reason why Konami shouldn't be pushing that. There's no reason why the first prize for a DDR tournament should be $1,000 or $500. For a community that has such a rich history, people should not have to. People should be able to eat off of DDR. So that's what I'll say about that. I know a lot of people disagree with a lot of the stuff that I said, but I'm not part of your community, so like it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, this is just my perspective from 2000, the end of 2001, the beginning of 2002, so like the beginning, the middle parts of 2006. So this is about a 2-hour video, and if you watch this whole video, I really appreciate it. You know, let me know what you thought, and I'll be back with one more video to kind of wrap up my experience playing DDR and my thoughts on New York City DDR and Supernova in 2006 in the next video. So thanks for watching.